Hello, welcome to Civilization Jihad Awareness, the show where truth wins every time. So, what does civilization jihad mean and where does it come from? That's the thing I always want to get out in front because it's not something, not a terminology I created. It was created by the Muslim Brotherhood to define their war against North America. This was discovered in a document that was used um, by the Attorney General against the Holy Land Foundation in the largest terrorism financing trial the United States has ever had. Um, I'm just going to read one paragraph from the document. The document, again, is called the Explanatory Memorandum. This one paragraph says it all. This is their agenda. The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Ikhwan must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers, so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. Without this level of understanding, we are not up to this challenge and have not prepared ourselves for jihad yet. It is a Muslim's destiny to perform jihad and work wherever he is, wherever he lands, until the final hour comes. And there is no escape from that destiny except for those who choose to slack. But with the slackers, the mujahideen be equal. Today, I've invited Leo Hohmann to come join us about a very, very important article he just wrote, and I put the link above above the chat room. Please take a look. Now we're going to talk about his article, Ultimate Form of Civilization Jihad Planned for This Michigan City. Now, a little bit of background about Leo Hohmann before I have him on. He deserves some great kudos. His book, Stealth Invasion, spent the majority of 2017 among Amazon.com's top 10 books about immigration policy. His articles appeared at WND.com, Front Page Magazine, Whistleblower Magazine, Jihad Watch, Drudge Report, Refugee Resettlement Watch, and many other websites and publications. Now, he's been on shows with Laura Ingraham, Alex Jones, Daniel Horowitz, Larry Elder, George Noory, from Coast to Coast, and Jan Markle of the Olive Tree Ministries. His mission has always been to fearlessly report truths about the great issues of our time and connect the dots wherever they may lead. This, I want to say thank you. And Leo, thank you for joining us. Hello? Leo? Hello? Hello, Leo. Are you here?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank God. I'm reading the other article. I don't know if you heard me that goes with what you did. Your article. I'll come back to this article later.
I just got on, so I didn't hear anything yet.
Oh, wow! I apologize for all the difficulties. I hope your weather gets a little bit better down there. I'm hoping that's the issue.
We're under a flash flood warning at the moment. It just won't stop raining here down south of Atlanta a little bit.
Wow. So I want to get straight into this and ask the questions. I'm sorry that it was such a difficult time getting it together, but let's talk about this article that you wrote. You uncovered civilization jihad in Sterling, Michigan. Can you tell us a little bit?
Right.
Yeah. Sterling Heights. Okay, I'm sorry, I got the name wrong. Okay, Sterling Heights. So can you tell us what you discovered?
Absolutely, yeah. It was sort of an on-the-ground clash of civilization jihad right there in front of us. What happened was a flyer started circulating in the community a week leading up to the event on July 22nd. It was a Sunday. And it was a flyer that was going out around saying that they were going to be having an open house for a mosque conversion. They were going to convert a church to a mosque. And all it said in the flyer, to the relentless honor of Allah and Islam, and sort of sounded like inviting the community to come, but then I had some friends of mine attend the event, and they said that it was not, what you would normally expect for a typical open house, say at a church or something. There was no ladies smiling with handing out donuts or, Bible tracts or anything welcoming, or no sense of welcoming like that you would expect at an open house. And in fact, one man who had I guess started asking some difficult questions was asked to leave. Another elderly woman was able to get further in asking questions, and that may have been what you were starting to read as I was coming onto your show, was her account of exactly what happened in asking these theologically based questions to the imams there at the mosque. But what as far as the property itself, it is owned by a Christian ministry on 16.5 Mile Road in Sterling Heights. It had been a Lutheran church for several years, first a St. Mark's Lutheran Church and then a Crown of Life Lutheran Church. And then it was bought in 2012, this property, by a non-denominational Christian ministry called God's Love Overpowers Ministries. And the woman who runs this ministry, is the one selling it to the Muslims to convert into a church, into a mosque. And as you know, Paul, whenever a Muslim group can convert a church to a mosque, that is like the ultimate dawah, the ultimate civilizational jihad victory that they can claim as they, move about in the various stages of takeover.
And this is also a claim that they have the concept of claiming a property like this means it can never again, to them, become a Christian or a Jewish or Mormon or whatever property. It has to always be Islamic. Am I correct?
That's correct. And as you know, there's a very important series of rituals that go on when they convert the church. They'll cleanse it with water. They'll say various prayers, including the Allahu Akbar chant at every corner of and then they'll go into the highest point of the church and have a call to prayer. And before they even go to that stage, they must remove all crosses, all symbols of Christianity that might be in that church. And so there is just no remnant left of Christianity, which they consider, an inferior religion, a filthy religion, really, because they don't understand the Trinity, and they believe that us Christians are guilty of.
Hello? Uh-oh. The weather there. Leo, we can't hear you just now. I think the storm is interfering. Oh, boy. I'll leave you live for a few minutes. Keep trying to talk, and when I hear you again, wow, the joy of this is just joy.
Did I lose you, Paul?
Oh, now you're back. Okay, so I'm going to jump to the next question. I was a little surprised about the people you mentioned in the article who are afraid to speak out due to fear of Muslim actions against them. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I spoke with about 7 people in the Sterling Heights community there, and only one I could quote in the article, Mr. Tom Mitchell. Every other person that I spoke with there would either speak to me off the record and tell me some things, or just say a few words and then say, I just really don't want to talk about this. And they would hang up on me when they found out I was a reporter and what I was working on. The fear in that community is just palpable. I even spoke with somebody who's running for a public office, and she, her name is out there a good bit, but even she was afraid to speak about these mosque issues going on in Sterling Heights. And this isn't the first one, by the way. They had a big court battle over a mega mosque in 2016 and into this year, and the ruling on that case, which was a 20,000 square foot mega mosque with 60-foot minarets, came down yesterday in the U.S. District Court for Eastern Michigan. Just came down yesterday, and it was in favor of the city against the residents. And so that mosque has now got the go-ahead to go ahead and start construction, although the citizens group that sued the city to stop it says they're going to appeal it to a federal appellate court now. So this city has just been divided and in all sorts of debates and controversies over these mosques. The vast majority of people don't want the mosque, and the reason I know that is I've delved into the city documents and looked at the meetings of the minutes where this first mosque was being discussed. And at one of the meetings, a very important meeting in August 2015, about 55 people, 56 people spoke. Everyone who spoke, about 50 of them, were against it. And there was about 6 or 7 who spoke in favor of it, and they were all had Muslim names. So everybody who had
curious. I'm sorry, I'm a little curious about this because you said the city is fighting its citizens. Is that correct?
That is correct. The Planning Commission, Paul, denied this mosque 9-0 in 2015. But the city then started working with the U.S. Justice Department, which under President Obama, we know, was forcing mosques down the throats of various communities around the country that didn't want them. And this was just one of those cases. The Justice Department, along with the Muslim group that wanted the mosque, sued the city when they had that Planning Commission denial. They sued the city, and then the city capitulated, totally caved in, and agreed to sign a consent order allowing the mosque to be built. And then that's when the citizens group sued the city saying, we don't want this. We see too much. It's in a residential community. There's going to be too much traffic. There's going to be noise. There's going to be parking issues. Not to mention, Paul, that this Muslim group, I believe it's a Shia Muslim group, wanted to build the location that they chose for this mosque was highly provocative. It was right smack dab in the middle of a neighborhood that is populated densely by Chaldean Christian refugees who came here from Iraq to get away from these people. They suffered a lot of persecution. They watched, in many cases, their family members killed, captured, beheaded, crucified, taken away from them in kidnappings and made sex slaves. They got out of Iraq to escape this nightmare. They come to Sterling Heights, Michigan, which is now the largest community of Chaldean Christians in the United States. They have about 30,000 of them.
Oh, wow.
And this is the neighborhood that has perhaps the most dense population in the city of Chaldeans. And this is where the Shia group wants to put their mosque. Not just a small mosque, but a massive mosque right there in the residential area. So the Planning Commission denied it, saying this is a violation of our zoning laws because, this area is zoned residential. And we foresee lots of traffic, parking, noise issues, and all that. But the Obama Justice Department sided with the city. The mayor in this was on the Muslim side the entire time, and I'm going to come out with a follow-up article on this probably tomorrow, explaining his role.
So this is humorous because the government of the United States, any government entity within the United States has to abide by the Constitution. And according to the Constitution, we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And that denies all of those constitutional principles. Am I correct?
Well, I think you're absolutely correct. In fact, the attorney for the citizens group, Mr. Robert Mize, he's with the American Freedom Law Center, said exactly something similar to what you're getting at, I think, saying that this was democracy in action here was just a mockery. In fact, at one of the meetings, the mayor even told everyone who came up to speak that they could not use the word religion, Muslim, or Islam. And if they did, they would be escorted out of the meeting. I mean, so they claimed, the lawsuit by the citizens claimed violation of open meetings laws as well as violations of the U.S. Constitution, which you just said. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. The self-determination and local government was really made a mockery of in this case. But as I said, this has been going on all over the last 4 or 5 years, not just in Sterling Heights. There's been very high-profile cases similar to this in quite a few other states, with the Justice Department intervening on the side of the Muslims.
And that was because of Obama's basic orders to put more mosques in. If you're listening, people, I want you to understand this is one of the reasons why I like Leo Hohmann's work. He goes through and he gets all the important pieces and the backgrounds that are essential to understanding the story. Now, he did one more thing. I mean, he's even gone in who is exactly behind the church that's selling this. Now, is this an interfaith entity or is this an evangelistic entity that's selling the church?
Paul, that's a great question that I know you've been interested in, and as well as I have been. And the best I can tell, we know who the woman behind the God's Love Overpowers ministry is. We have identified her. I have confirmed in an email between herself and me that she is the one. But I don't think this is a case of interfaithism running amok. It could be, but more than likely what we have here is a case of a woman who runs a non-denominational ministry that is very just, evangelical in nature. And she is probably, from what I can tell, simply completely ignorant and oblivious to the dangers of what's going on here by selling her church out to a mosque.
Wow. And I think people need to understand that there's a real important reason for them targeting a church beyond the fact of conquest. Their issue in Sterling Heights previously was zoning issues, and this does not have a zoning issue, correct?
That is correct, because it's already been an existing house of worship in an area that is already zoned for churches or houses of worship, as I think it's worded. So, to put a church or a mosque or a synagogue there is going to be 100% A-OK. I don't believe there will be any hearings or anything, public hearings, held on this one. So, as one of the men there in Michigan, I quoted in my article, said, this will be like a fourth mosque coming in through the side door to this town of Sterling Heights, which, it's a city of 130,000, which is a fairly large, medium-sized city. But the Muslim population there is only around 1,000 or less people. So, why do they need 4 mosques, including one that's over 20,000 square feet, to serve this relatively small community of Muslim immigrants is questionable. But another thing we have to look at is the flight. There's been a white flight out of many communities in southeastern Michigan. Dearborn, Hamtramck, Warren, these suburbs of Detroit that have always traditionally been like white immigrant, Polish, Italians, German people. They're now fleeing out of these areas that are going Muslim. Hamtramck, for instance, now has a Muslim majority city council first city in America to have a Muslim majority city council. And this used to be called Pole Town. It was settled by Polish immigrants many years ago and was always known as a Polish town. Well, it's now known as a Muslim town. And Poles, those who are left, are fleeing up north to cities like Sterling Heights. But now, see, Sterling Heights is in the target. That's why I think all these mosques are being built, just to sort of encourage the Muslim migration northward to follow the white migration. In other words, you're not going to avoid this, Mr. Polish American or Mr. Italian American. You can flee Hamtramck or Dearborn or Warren or Madison Heights, any of those areas, but it's going to follow you. And so, maybe you need to go further north. I don't know if you don't like living among Muslim communities.
Wow. This is it's kind of shocking. Now, the governor, the people who are, I'm sorry, one more question on who is Muhammad Al-Omari and how is he connected with the change in the ethnic diversity of the community?
Mr. Al-Omari is a immigration attorney of Middle Eastern descent. I don't know if he was born in America or migrated here, but he has been put in charge of the city's ethnic committee, Ethnic Community Committee it's called, and this committee is in charge of it traditionally has been in charge of making, people from different diverse immigration areas feel at home, sort of helping them assimilate into the American culture. But under Mr. Al-Omari's leadership, and he was approved by the mayor and council to be put on this ethnic committee, they hold a community cultural exchange every year in the springtime. And under his leadership, under Al-Omari's leadership, this cultural exchange has become a little bit more Islamic every year and a little bit less Polish, a little bit less Bulgarian, a little bit less Albanian, and all the other ethnic groups that sort of live amongst each other in this area. In fact, he has invited civilizational jihadists to come to this annual event and hand out free Qurans, sermons from imams. He's brought in civil rights attorneys and immigration attorneys to hand out literature in Arabic. It's become a platform for this propaganda from outside agencies and outside groups. Mosques from outside the city have been invited to come and hand out Qurans and literature. There's a group called the Omar Foundation for Awareness and Understanding, which is based out of Southfield, Michigan. It is a very clever civilizational jihadist organization which propagates all sorts of lies about Islam being a religion of peace and tolerance, freedom and justice and equality for all, Paul. Can you believe it?
I do that a regular routine with a local Muslim imam here, Dr. Muhammad Shafiq, where we go through this routine. I ask him what Islam means. He says it means peace. I say, stop lying to them. Please tell them what it means in Arabic. Then he says submission. So we have to go through this dance every time we meet.
Who is submitting to who? That's the question.
So my question is, what happens if I don't want to submit?
Right.
Do I get killed? That's. I mean, I ask him that. I point right out to ask him that, and he doesn't necessarily like that. But so you would consider Mr. Muhammad Al-Omari a civilization jihadist, correct?
I would, yes. I think he's a classic civilization jihadist, and from what I understand, he has had connections with CARE, the Michigan chapter of CARE. He's been active in that organization.
So he's got connections to Hamas in America. Great. Yes. Just the kind of person you want working for your local city or town.
Yes. But this mayor, Mr. Michael Taylor, is completely clueless He's also a local attorney who somehow started his second term in office this year. But I'm told they had like an 18% voter turnout, and this is how, people who are not the best leaders get in office, when people don't take local government seriously.
I have a hard time believing a concept of an 18% voter turnout on local elections with a mayor that is not liked. Be willing to bet dollars to donuts somebody has changed the voter box.
Yeah, from what I understand, it was in that neighborhood, right, of less than 20%. It really is remarkable.
I say this having been one of those guys who used to count the back of the machines, and I was a Republican election coordinator, so I not only looked at the back of one machine, we read the sheets later on. I mean, there's a whole bunch of steps that the next step up does. So, I mean, it's important to understand that there's something off with this description of 18%, and there's another piece to go look at in the future.
Yeah.
Sure. I want to go on. One of my last questions for you is Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed is a candidate for the governor of Michigan who states he follows Sharia. If he wins, what do you think could happen to Michigan?
I really think that folks like Mohammed Al-Amari will be put in charge of many statewide agencies that are, politically appointed. I can imagine perhaps somebody of his ilk being named Attorney General, or into prosecutorial positions. It could be really, really horrible. I don't think he's going to win. I don't think he's going to win the Democratic primary, let alone the governorship. But if he gets more than 30% of the vote in the Democratic primary, which is coming up, by the way, just next week on August 7th, I think that should be a huge wake-up call for the state of Michigan. If he gets 40% or more, look out. He could be named to a cabinet position, a statewide by the new governor. If the Democratic candidate, Gretchen Whitmer, I believe is her name, wins, she's the front runner, and let's say he gets 40% of the vote or close to it, 35%, I could see him getting a high position in her cabinet.
So we're not only concerned about him becoming governor, but we need to be concerned about him becoming an influential cabinet person. Wow.
Correct. He's a very highly educated. He's very young. He's only 33 years old, but he's a very smooth speaker. He's a doctor of epidemiology, Rhodes Scholar. A lot of people have actually, Paul, described him as the next Obama. The next Obama.
I have read that multiple times, and it always shocks me.
Yeah.
This guy is an oak in some ways, though, not like Obama, where he's actually come out. I've seen the video. I think it was on your site, maybe, where he said to one of the Republican candidates, "You may not hate us, but all Muslims hate you."
Yes, yes, he actually said that. He was in a debate. This was just a month and a half or so ago, gubernatorial debate. They had all the candidates up there, or most of them. And Patrick Colbeck, who is the most conservative Republican candidate for governor, had made the statement that he has nothing against Muslims personally. He loves Muslims. He actually said, "I love Muslims. It's the Muslim Brotherhood that I have a problem with." And went on to describe the dangers of the Muslim Brotherhood. Well, Abdul Al-Sayed then took the podium, and said, you may love Muslims, but let me tell you, Muslims definitely hate you. And do you know that was not reported widely in any of the any of the local media. It was just astounding. It was inserted as an afterthought in a semi-unrelated article by one newspaper. It did not make any headlines. I was the only one who reported that headline, and it literally went viral. So that just shows you, usually newspapers, TV stations, what do they want? They want readers. They want viewers, right?
In a case like
they
don't
this,
want them to know the truth, though.
Yeah, they actually covered up the truth, which would have been big news in the state, in order to protect this Muslim candidate.
This is some of the stuff that blows my mind, and I get angry and upset about. And unfortunately, there's little I can do besides make sure I do what I can to get that information out, and I do that through this show currently.
That's why we need more people like you, because the hypocrisy of the mainstream media is unbelievable. I mean, here you had a candidate who's supposedly all about diversity and welcoming and tolerance. That's all he speaks about. And here he cuts loose with a quote at a public debate saying that all Muslims hate one of his opponents in the race. How is that peaceful and tolerant, and welcoming and inclusive? It went against everything he says he stands for. Could you imagine if Trump had made such if Trump were caught making such a hypocritical comment, it would have been all over the news.
Gosh, yes. They would have been on a loudspeaker broadcast in Times Square.
Right.
Every large screen that owned by a liberal media would have been broadcasting that at its highest volume. But no, hide the gubernatorial candidate in Michigan. Protect him.
Right.
Scary.
And he would be I think he's the first Muslim to ever run for governor of any state, but I'm not certain about that. But I do know that if he were to win this primary, he would be the first Muslim to ever win a primary for governor, let alone a general election.
I gotta say thank you, and tell everybody, look, the Center for Security Policy, the United West, Leo Hohmann, and several others are very concerned about what's going to happen, myself included. Will Michigan be a threat to national security if we have a Muslim governor? This is what it's going to come down to. I want to thank you for joining us, Leo. I wish we didn't have all these wonderful weather issues that get in our way from communicating, but
we
so
did
happy
end up
you
connecting. So thank you so much for having me on, and we'll keep an eye on what's going on in Michigan as well as Minnesota and many of these other states.
God bless you, brother. Fight on for Jesus. God, thank you for all your great work. God bless.